food. It sustains us while it draws us together. In many ways, our lives revolve around raising it, preparing it, and eating it. And Albertans love it. Alberta has more than 40,000 farms, all of them working to put food on dinner tables here and around the world. Our climate and geography are ideal for growing wheat, barley, rye, and canola, and our grasslands enable us to raise world-renowned beef. Our strong farming heritage has put Alberta on the cutting edge of all manner of agricultural production. And of course, perhaps even more than we love to farm, we love to eat. A lot. For the next hour, join us as we explore Alberta's dinner tables, restaurants, and farms. We're going to find out what's for dinner, how dinner has changed over the years, and what it means to produce, prepare, and eat food in our beautiful province. The best place to start is at the beginning, which takes us to Head Smashed In Buffalo Jump. A UNESCO World Heritage Site, Head Smashed In lies in the foothills of southern Alberta and is one of the oldest, largest, and best preserved buffalo jumps in the world. It was used continuously by the Aboriginal peoples of the plains for nearly 6,000 years. Pagan elder Little Leaf explains what dinner time meant to the ancient plains people.
The buffalo gave us everything that we need. Going back to it, food. Most important in life is food. That is number one. All those years, we had a system. It's based on communal. Communal, we share. So for us, we don't have like a breakfast at 7:30 in the morning. You know, we don't have that 24-hour thing. We don't have lunch at noon time, and at 6 o'clock to have dinner or supper. We don't have snacks. We don't have that well-defined. We go with the internal clock within you. You know when you are hungry. You're gonna have food. You will take that food and you'll eat. Now, on the other hand, we travel around, we're gatherers of wild vegetables. We got onions, turnips, a whole array of them. I'm just itemizing a few. And then we got berries of all sorts. Like right here, we got raspberries, gooseberries, strawberries, chokecherries, saskatoons, name it, just an abundance of berries. Hunters and gatherers, that's how we live.
When pioneers came to Alberta in the 19th century, they brought agriculture, which quickly took hold and changed what people ate for dinner. The Ukrainian Cultural Heritage Village is a great place to get a taste of what dinner on a pioneer farm might have been like.
Ukrainsky, this evening meal is called večerya, but in the English, supper, of course. We will make something for the main meal during the day. It's noontime, obid, and then we will have what is left from this for supper in the evening. The men would come inside from the fields to have the main day meal, but sometimes if it is harvest time and you have maybe a threshing crew or something, there would be a meal maybe around 4 o'clock in the afternoon or something like this, that just smaller, that would be brought out to the men in the fields. All ingredients we are growing on our own garden, in our farms, and if we use berries or something, then we will have to find outside.
Борщ, beet soup, голубці, cabbage rolls, vegetable soup or potato, bread, salad, and what else?
We're not having meat very often because it costs a lot more the animal. So on the special holidays we will have pork or sometimes chicken. But we don't really eat meat from the cow because it's too precious to have the cow for the milk, and then you can make butter and cream and all this.
Farmers would prepare as many ingredients as they could, things like butter and fresh meat, then visit the nearest general store for whatever their own farms could not provide.
We put the молоко in here, it's very nice to have because молоко is interesting, yeah? After a little while, it's go down, and the smetana, the nice cream, is come up. So then you can let the молоко out, you just put a little jug or something, and then you have the smetana already. And when you have the smetana, you can take you can put here into the masloveiko, which is very nice to have too, because in old country we don't have this. You know what we do in old country? Mama should give me the jar of smetana, and I go like this for half day, yeah? So it's very nice to have, because in Canada, life is so easy, you can just talk and make the masa. When it's ready, we have the nice butter press here. You know, you have lines on this side and lines on this side, you know, cut out, because, you know, people like to see the nice lines and everything so straight. So when we make it, it's exactly 1 pound of butter, yeah? And, you know, sometimes when we have too much, we go to Skokie Lake and we sell for 10 cents a pound.
You know, when in the area, you know, they come here for things they just need. You know, we have the soap, you know, the P&G soap, you know, but that is for washing clothes, you know, and the sunlight, you know, that is mainly for you know, washing hands. Yeah, 7 cents, you know, I think it is very good price for what it is, yeah? And, you know, we have canned fruit, you know, and all of that is coming from British Columbia off the train. The cocoa, you know, you mix with a little bit of sugar, you know, it is nice drink for when it is cold day like today, you know, and that is about 20 cents. And the baking soda, it is 13, and we have lard, you know, many things, you know, most things, you know, people are needing what they can't grow at home, you know. Tato, he has garden out back as well, you know, for growing.
When What's for Dinner returns, we'll look at the modern pioneer spirit in Alberta. I wonder what they're serving tonight at the Main Street Cafe in Nanton. Alberta's pioneer spirit lives on in modern-day kitchens all around our province. Skokie Lodge is a prime example. Tucked deep into the mountains of Banff National Park, Skokie is a beautiful backcountry lodge. The only way to access this National Historic Site is a vigorous 11-kilometer hike. All provisions are brought in on horseback. With no power, no running water, and definitely no grocery store around the corner, Chef Katie Mitzel and her staff create meals that any 5-star hotel would be proud to serve. We talked to her about some of the challenges and blessings of cooking dinner in a unique setting like Skokie.
For me, it's the place itself is vibrant with imagination and possibility, and that's sort of, I think, the staying power of the Skokie spirit. I mean, it keeps me here because I feel inspired continuously by the environment and by the people I meet. I get to meet some pretty amazing people every day, so I want every day to be the highest standard. And the beauty of cooking at Skokie for me is that it's a creative process. So I don't have a set menu, I don't have someone saying, you know, this is how it has to be prepared in this order. I have the ability to make a creative dinner out of the groceries that we receive. So every day is going to be a completely different experience. Hopefully it's going to be an excellent one. But I think what makes this place unique in you know, in regards to where it is that there's a lot of facilities of its kind around, but they're all sort of have something different that to me takes away from the spirit of the place. A lot of the lodges are helicopter lodges. You know, people have to get here on their own steam, and I think that that's a real morale builder for a lot of people. For them to have that experience is really incredible. I mean, they like, look what I did and look what the possibilities are. And I think that sort of is humbling for a lot of people, and it sort of creates bonds with strangers, and, you know, because they're all sort of a part of that adventure. And I think that's sort of at the dinner table, you see that continuity. They've shared a day hiking and now they're going to share a meal together. And so it goes right back to the beginning of breaking bread. You know, it's quite a beautiful thing to watch unfold. Lifelong friendships. I love vegetables. I love the colors and the, you know, just the seasonality of them. I love the idea of getting vegetables that are in season as opposed to taking things, you know, that are growing sort of out of the province and stuff. And Alberta is bountiful for that. I mean, it's amazing what this province has to offer. I'm able to, through my food ordering system, purchase tons and tons of our produce, all just from Alberta. There's a lot of people that come from Calgary, Edmonton, Hinton, Jasper, Lethbridge. It's endless. You know, Skokie's always been known for its food, and I think it's not only the food prepared, but the journey of the food. And people see that, they realize that it's coming in the same way they did. So there's a lot of, you know, unrealized potential for disaster. And when they end up getting this fantastic meal, they're like, yes. Yeah. The Skokie Cookbook's available in Lake Louise and Banff at the Viewpoint. It's also available in Banff at Moose Prints and the White Museum. I have it in High River. I have it in Calgary at Heritage Park, Pages on Kensington, Owl's Nest Bookstore.
Oh.
Even though Alberta's pioneer spirit is strong, many of us are far removed from those days. However, the pockets where some pioneers settled have evolved into neighborhoods or cultural enclaves. Now the descendants of those original settlers live alongside other Albertans, both old and new. One of these enclaves is Vasa, a Swedish community on the shores of Pigeon Lake. At their annual youth camp, head chef Kelsey Johnson helps keep Vasa's culinary traditions alive.
We are at Vasa Park, children's summer camp. Actually where I grew up. Maximum 64 kids, then 12 counselors, and then probably about 100 volunteers. Tonight is meatball night. It's the traditional Swedish meatballs, the teeny tiny ones with the gravy, and the mashed potatoes, which are really, really common potatoes in everything in Sweden. And yesterday was pea soup and pancake day, which we all thought was made up, but then we had a Swede come this year and he's like, oh no, that's real. We do that in the army. I was in the army for 2 years. He's like, we do that all the time. That's traditional. So we're like, all right. We didn't make it up. Sounds good.
But yeah, no, he was out there doing something.
The biggest thing is the size. They've got to be really, really teeny tiny. Otherwise, the lady will like walk around and throw your meatball in the main meat tray and you have to re-roll the teeny tiny ones. We also have nutmeg, allspice, sometimes buttermilk and buttermilk bread to make it like really moist and delicious. And the gravy. I like to put coffee, the coffee gravy. Yeah, coffee's huge in Sweden too, so you throw in like some instant coffee in there or brew espresso, start with that. It's pretty good. Eating the reindeer and the elk there, that was a lot more common than here. You know, it was almost on most menus there. So I guess we just replace a lot more with the beef and the pork as opposed to the lamb and the goat and the weird northern ingredients.
When we return, we'll explore the growth of Chinese restaurants in Alberta. But in the meantime, don't forget to dash out to the Big Moo in Sylvan Lake for a couple of scoops. In terms of food, Chinese Canadians are one of the most important immigrant communities. Almost every small town in Alberta has a Chinese restaurant, while Edmonton and Calgary both have sizable Chinatowns. Linda Zhang, who curated the Chop Suey on the Prairies exhibit at the Royal Alberta Museum, is an expert on the story of Chinese food in Alberta.
The very first mass migration of Chinese people to Canada was actually in 1858 for the Fraser Valley Gold Rush. What brought them to Alberta was the conclusion of the building of the railway. So what happened was when the railway finished, they were supposed to be returned home by the CPR and by contractors who had hired them. That didn't happen. So a lot of people are actually stranded in Canada. One thing you have to recall is most Chinese men at the turn of the century did not know how to cook, right? So they actually learned how to cook the Canadian way when they came to Canada because their job prospects were extremely limited in this earlier period. And so they were basically confined to being laborers or domestic workers, right? Houseboys, more colloquial called. So when they became houseboys, they had to be taught how to cook and clean the Canadian way, right? So the brave ones who sort of wanted to venture out and be self-employed, they took those skills that they learned as domestic workers and transferred that into running small hotels. And a lot of the small hotels, by default in this earlier period, also ran small restaurants. In this earlier period, it's a bachelor society. So again, you remember that most of these men didn't know how to cook and clean for themselves. So the few of them who maybe had some cooking skills or thought they had some cooking skills would open small eateries in the urban centers, primarily to feed this laboring community. The menu wouldn't have been any different from any other eatery. So you're talking meat, potatoes, sandwiches, really, really basic, what we would now consider almost diner food. So a lot of the menus will specify tinned meats, tinned vegetables. And there is a very big premium on fresh vegetables. I mean, for instance, if you look at some of the menus, veal chops and potatoes is 40 cents. A side of sliced tomatoes is 20 cents. Chop suey cuisine is things like chop suey, the version of chow mein where it's basically those crispy rice noodles plus bean sprouts. Sweet and sour spare ribs is a big part of it. It's things that if you had been an immigrant from China coming and looking at it, you wouldn't recognize it, but you would recognize a couple of the ingredients in it. And then there are the differences in the cities. You do get chop suey parlors, right? Which, because you're in a city and people think they're more sophisticated and are more adventurous, that whole genre of chop suey cuisine really develops in the 20s, you know, and it's offering something mildly exotic. Well, we think of as mildly exotic, but at the time would have been extremely exotic, you know, to actually see bean sprouts. One thing that's readily available, because you could control growing it yourself, was bean sprouts. So every single Chinese restaurant, whether or not they serve Chinese food, the families themselves would have grown bean sprouts in the basement. If nothing else, they were feeding themselves and their families, right? And it's also based on, you know, it's dried beans, so that's easily importable. The specific version that you see on all the Chinese food menus in Alberta is an Alberta invention, that sort of that battered deep fried beef with this sort of sticky, slightly sweet, slightly spicy sauce. That ginger beef is really found nowhere other than Alberta. I mean, now it's been exported to some other provinces. You can find it if you really look for it in Ontario, but you'll never find it in BC.
So who invented it?
Well, it's credited to George Wong at the Silver Inn in Calgary.
Alberta is now an incredibly diverse place. People from dozens of countries call this province home, and they all bring their own culinary histories and traditions. Yet many have also found new favorites. We asked some folks about their favorite foods, and, well, let them speak for themselves.
What's your favorite food? The deep fried Mars bar.
Steak.
Lasagna.
Pizza. Chicken fingers, probably. Nice. Yeah. French fries, maybe? I don't know. I know.
So you two together would be chicken fingers and fries then?
You share it.
Cannoli.
Spaghetti.
Probably spaghetti.
Pizza. I was going to say that. Can't go wrong with pizza.
All right, how about you?
Lasagna.
Ooh, Italian.
Probably bacon. I like bacon.
Bacon on anything, right?
Anything.
I like Indian food.
I like Greek food. How about
Same
you?
thing. Greek food, yeah.
Milk. Oh wait, that's a...
Fail. Let's try again.
That's not a food. Ice cream.
Iced milk, I like it.
Pancakes.
Pancakes.
Chicken with caramelized onion.
Ooh, nice.
Miso soup.
Miso soup, very nice.
Like everything. I eat pretty much anything. What's your favorite food? Pizza. I'm pretty easy. It's like I'm still a 5-year-old.
I'm like a tenderloin guy, completely rare, little blue on the inside. Delicious.
Pizza. Lobster bisque.
Everything.
Everything. Great answer.
Pierogies and your nachinka and what have you.
Mexican. Yeah, Mexican food. Tacos, burritos.
What is your favorite food of all time?
Ribs. Yeah, probably beef brisket.
Sushi.
Soup or ice cream? Meatloaf and scalloped potatoes.
Steak and potatoes.
What's for dinner? We'll be right back. But if you're already thinking about breakfast, you might want to see what they're serving up at Nellie's in Calgary. Food is now distributed in such a way that many people never get a sense of how that food is grown or raised, or what life is like for the farmers who produce it.
Well, this is a 100-year farm. So we had our 100th year in 2008, I think so. And actually, my grandfather was here slightly before then, so we've been here a while.
The crops we farm now are wheat, barley, and canola, and we rotate on a 3-year or a 5-year rotation, depending on where we're at. And we have a mixed farm, you call it. We have beef cattle, and we also have 5 chickens.
Yeah, this is my 3rd season on my own farm, and before that I think I'd spent about 2 or 3 seasons on other people's farms.
We've got a flock of purebred Icelandic sheep. And it's we've probably got about 30 ewes right now. And well, we've officially got 2 ram. There's a few others kicking around who one day will go on to serve other purposes. And about 25 lambs right now.
We grow 45 different vegetable crops basically, and so like everything that you would expect to eat around here, like potatoes, carrots, peas, beans, radishes, lettuce, arugula, mustard greens, corn, tomatoes, beets, broccoli, Swiss chard, cauliflower, cabbage. Like the list kind of just goes on.
You need to try new things sometimes to make it out here. And so that's something that we're trying to, a different way to make a living, I guess.
So community-supported agriculture is what CSA stands for. There's a lot of ways to describe it, and it's always changing to me what it is and even what it is to our farm, but it's a way to get into relationship with a farm and with a farmer.
Farming is a gamble. I mean, you go to town and shoot the dice or roll cards or whatever. There is nothing that's more of a gamble than farming, because when you start arguing with Mother Nature or hoping that Mother Nature will help you out, yeah, then you can lose in a hurry.
And can you tell us a little bit about what life on the farm was like when you were growing up?
The crew would start probably about 5 in the morning, and they would first of all go and feed and water the horses, because they had to have their breakfast, of course, too. And then the men would go and have their breakfast and go back to the barn and harness the horses, get them ready to hitch up to the rack, and away they'd go. So they would probably be loading bundles and maybe even thrashing by 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. And they would thrash right straight through until noon. And of course the horses pulling the wagons and stuff, working fairly hard. They needed to have an hour break. They would also get a feed of oats and some hay at noon and have that hour rest while the men were feeding themselves and getting their rest. And then they'd be back again, and they would work right through again until supper time, 6 o'clock. And the women would bring a feast out for the men to have, and the horses would also get fed again. And occasionally they would work again through until maybe even dark, 7, 8 o'clock again at dark. And they would quit thrashing then and take the horses back to the barn and unharness them, wash or feed them and water them and everything, and put them away for the night. And then they would have time to go and relax and be ready, get ready for the next day.
It was just a couple days I was there with them helping. I don't know what I was doing because I was quite young to be out helping, but they, I remember my aunt having a milk can full of cookies as we went to give them lunch in the field, the farmers, and a lot of water and stuff. And like the whole cupboard was filled with cinnamon buns, and that was just for lunch. And then for supper, I can remember the pots of potatoes and how much the men would eat, because it was a tremendous amount of work that they were doing. And all the food came from the garden. Like they had huge gardens, and the amount of work that they did to prepare it without the electric things that we have today, I'm always amazed at what they did. But they did eat a lot, and the women, they worked very hard making huge meals, thrashing meals. They used to always call these thrashing meals.
Of the beef rings. So because of the problems they had with keeping meat fresh, preserved, before it deep freezes, they might have a beef ring. So one person would, get meat from their animal, and it would be split between a number of families. And then the next week, another member of that ring would butcher an animal, and they'd share the meat around to try and keep fresh meat.
It gets to be a long day. Even now, we maybe don't start at 5, but most of the time at 6. Start in the morning, and by the time you get the equipment prepared and fueled up and ready to go for the day, and a lot of times we don't get started thrashing until after dinner, till the dew evaporates off, so the grain is dry enough we can combine. And so we have dinner, and then we start thrashing or combining, and And by the time supper rolls around, you've been, it's fairly tedious work. You're working hard and getting the grain in the bin, of course. And so it's kind of a family gathering, and also it's just a bit of a break from the daily routine, go, and type of thing. And it works out well. The ladies work hard to get us a meal, and they bring it out there, and we really enjoy it.
I don't know, farming's hard work. Like the scale that we're on, we can't afford a whole lot of mechanization, and that's not really the route I want to go. So a lot of it is, I guess I should zoom in on my hands. Like you can't get them clean anymore. Like the mud's caked in there. So it's hard work, but it's like work that makes you feel good, And it's not like you get home and you're tired and you collapse, but in the summertime, what else would you do?
Coming up next on What's for Dinner? Dinner! Also, next time you're in Endiang, be sure to get some pie from Ruthie's Roost. Alberta's most famous dinner item is Alberta Beef. But you can find all sorts of fantastic ingredients for your dinner from our home province. Chef Stephen Ferguelli and food author Julie Van Rosendahl cook up a fantastic meal with Alberta's own ingredients.
I thought I would make a classic beef stew today. Just something that you can use any number of cuts of beef. You can use whatever vegetables are in season. It can be fancied up with red wine and fresh herbs, or you can use a can of beer. You could use tomatoes, or any kind of liquid can be used in a braise. So it's really simple. It's something that you don't really need a recipe for. Once you've made it, you can just do it.
I'm going to be making a seared New York strip steak, and that's going to be served over a barley risotto with some fresh roasted vegetables.
I've got a couple pieces of blade. This is top blade steak and a blade roast, which I've cubed. These are really tough cuts of meat. You couldn't throw this on the grill and have a really tender steak. So this is a kind of meat that they often call a simmering steak or a marinating steak, and you need to cook it for a long, slow cooking time. So braising is perfect.
Here is a steak from Sangudo Custom Meats. I'm just going to season it up well. I'm going to heavily season this because it's going to lose quite a bit from here to the pan.
I love cooking dishes that cook all in one dish. Minimizes dishes, and you maximize all the flavors. And I love cast iron that you can just throw everything in, get nice crispy bits in the bottom.
Oil should be nice and hot. Now the key I found to cooking steaks this way, just don't touch it. Just leave it alone, let it cook about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes each side, then let it rest nicely.
Get the onions going. The great thing about this kind of cooking is that there's no one right way to do it, right? Everyone does it their own way.
Use the same methods as you would normally cook an Italian rice risotto. So nice and slow, just by adding liquid a little bit at a time. And then you get a creamy consistency without adding any cream. And very, very little dairy. And I'm gonna season this up just a touch more. And just a little bit of vegetable stock as well.
So then I'm going to push it over and add a little bit of tomato paste, or just some nice thick tomato sauce. It's not quite paste.
See that beautiful color? Love that. Just gonna let it go a little bit longer though.
So once most of the liquid is cooked off, I'm going to add the meat. Look at all those juices. Whoa! I'll add some beef stock. You could add coffee, you could add tomato juice, you could add a can of stewed tomatoes, with their juices. Red wine.
Our carrots are from Peas on Earth, and I buy from them often at the Old Strathcona Farmers Market. So, pan's nice and hot on this. Risotto's working. I'm just going to put the carrots into the oven for a few moments afterwards, just to kind of let them cook through a little bit more.
So then you want to cover it. If you don't have a lid, just use some tin foil. And this is going to go into the oven about 300 or 325 degrees for about 2.5 hours.
I'm just going to baste the steak as it's cooking. That way it gives off a little bit of nuttiness to the steak. That's beautiful. If you notice on the back side of the meat, I left the fat cap on. What I'm gonna do is just tilt up, and I just wanna sear off that fat cap. Just get all that beautiful buttery fat nice and crackling. Now that this is done, I'm just gonna let that meat rest and just let it sit there for a minimum of 5 minutes while I finish up the risotto.
What I do is I cook the beef for 2.5 hours, give it a chance to get really nice and tender and break down, and then add the carrots and the potatoes, equally sweet and tender and awesome, at the end. So I put them in, sort of nestle them into the gravy, and then put the pot back in the oven for about half an hour, 45 minutes, and that will give the vegetables a chance to get nice and tender without turning to mush.
The Cheeseries Pecorino, that's from Kit Scotty, our good friend Rhonda out there. She makes excellent pecorino cheese. So I'll add a bit of cheese to that, and I have an herb mixture here with some parsley, thyme, and rosemary. And the rosemary is actually grown just out in front.
I'm gonna stir in the carrots and the potatoes, but really any veggies that you like, you know. If you wanna put some peas in, even do asparagus, really. So those will cook for about half an hour. I'm just gonna throw the whole thing back in the oven. Use the right lid. And that's it. It's funny how it seems like the most elaborate meals are usually the most low maintenance meals.
To these carrots, I'm just gonna add the beans very, very quickly, because like I said, they've already been blanched a little bit. So you got some lovely color on that. These gorgeous things. Beautiful.
There we go. So that's cooked for a few hours altogether. You can see how the meat is just super, super tender. If I stir it up too much, it'll start to fall apart.
While the risotto's working and the steak is resting, I'm just gonna heat up the sauce. Now I did a reduced veal stock, and then from that I added Saskatoon berries to make our sauce for today. So I'm just gonna heat that up. Nothing at all, just straight up bone and goodness.
And the potatoes are tender, the carrots are tender. You can see it's not very liquidy, but you know, if you want more liquid, just add more liquid. It's your stew, you can do whatever you like with it.
I'm gonna put down this risotto just in the center. You can just smell the rosemary coming off that right now. It smells amazing. These lovely roasted rainbow carrots. Now I'm going to take this meat and I'm going to just slice it on a bias, and then I'm going to fan it over this so you can see just the crackling top there. It's beautiful. So if you look, just like butter on the inside, beautiful.
If you want to add a little bit of flourish at the end, this is very chefy, I realize. But I always have tons of Italian parsley in my garden. It grows really well. It's super low maintenance and uber local because it's right outside my balcony. So you can just, you know, scatter some fresh parsley on top, stir it in, or just leave it on top and bring the whole pot to the table. And that way you get a little bit of leafy greens in there too.
Everything is so rich and creamy. A little bit of these chili pickled zucchinis would just go really nice on top. Just to finish this off, just a little bit of this Saskatoon demi. And these are from Yakimit's farm. They've been dealing with Kalina for quite a long time. There you have it. This beautiful grass-fed organic steak.
There's more What's for Dinner coming up. The next time you're in Edmonton, don't forget to grab a calzone from Batista's. What is it that makes Alberta such a special place to cook and grow food? Some of our farmers, growers, and chefs weighed in.
I don't really know because I've often thought it'd be nice to go on some of these ag tours and experience what other countries and other, provinces, states or whatever do. But as far as farming in Alberta, I don't think that there's a better place to farm, right here. I mean, I guess it's whatever you're born into, whatever you're raised like, and the operation. Now, you go to southern Alberta where there's irrigation, something different style altogether, and people grew up with that, and that's what they like, that's what they know. This is what I like, and this is what I know.
I think for a chef to find their comfort zone, they need to define what kind of cooking they really, truly enjoy. What makes your heart sing?
I always say it's unique in that you don't have a boss. You don't directly have a customer.
I see a lot of opportunity because I see a lot of restaurants are up and coming. There's a lot of new activity. There's places starting up all over the place. We have a place like Three Boars where Braden just makes this exceptional food, which seems to have found its own little niche market here. And those kind of restaurants are things that keep chefs like us inspired, to keep creating new and exciting dishes. And like I mentioned before, it just seems like Calgary and Edmonton specifically are really pushing a fresh new scene. Something different. You have different varieties of food available, exceptional beef, everything.
It's been really fun to have some kids come out and start to get their hands dirty, and for me it's what makes farming worth it, because I'm here to feed people in my community, and really this is the best way to get to know your eaters, right?
The other day, Robbie's change table is right underneath of his window, and so I was changing him, and I was able to say, outside of your window, I see 3 sheep and a llama. Oh, and there's the cat, and oh, look at the birds, and it's a pretty cool life out here. It's exciting. I think it'll be fun for a little boy running around.
So as a cook, and as an eater, more importantly, you can taste the difference between food that's in season, that hasn't spent days on a truck getting here from Mexico or wherever. It just, when you eat a real strawberry or a real tomato, it's a completely different experience. And you hear chefs all the time say, start with good ingredients.
My father always stressed to me the importance of good, fresh, honest food. Food was never adulterated in the kitchen either. It was just prepared freshly and simply, and I really learned to appreciate it that way. So coming here and specifically working at a place like Cuisine, where our chef owner, Brad, really encourages that sort of thing. It's an easy shoe-in, and it's just something I can use to express, my love of food through something simply that, somebody sitting here will just really get it. They'll see the plate and they'll just understand what I was doing.
Things like the 100-mile diet are both, I think, going to save the family farm and also going to supply a future generation of agricultural producer, because I run into a lot of urbanites that find out that I'm a farmer and think it's absolutely fascinating and want to get involved and want to learn more, and they want to come to my farm, and I usually tell them no, because we're not sort of a tourist farm. There are tourist farms, and they do a very good job of that.
A friend of mine in Ontario about 6 years ago, he's like, farmers are the new rock stars. And I was like, farmers have to be the new rock stars, let's do it. And then I came to Alberta and people are like, farming? Totally laughing at you. And not that farmers are rock stars yet, but I think that the fact that farmers are kind of starting to gain a little bit of respect amongst just the average eater, I think is indicative of people starting to think more about their food and caring where it comes from.
I love supporting farmers markets where the truck pulls right up, and they open the back and the food still has the dirt on it, and it has so much more flavor when it's in season and when it's local, because it doesn't have travel miles to go to reach your plate.
Basically in Edmonton, people want to know where food comes from, and I like to tell people this is where it comes from. If I can't tell you where it comes from, then I'm not going to bring it in.
You're really independent, and maybe that's why farmers are somewhat eccentric.
I think one of the benefits to my situation right now and to where I am is the relationships I've developed with the people that I deal with.
The producers.
With the producers, between the cheesery or Gull Valley, or as I mentioned, John from Gold Forest Grain. It's honestly such a dear pleasure to get to know them because they want to establish a real relationship with you, and I find that really makes the job more fun because they'll come by here with their product. We'll talk a little bit here and there. It's a great environment to be in. When you can talk to the people, you get exactly what you want. They're happy to give you their product. You're happy to use it.
I think in farming, you either have to win the lottery or be born into it, which I guess is sort of winning the lottery in another sense of the word.
I think we're lucky.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people who want to do this, who are trying to do it in some way in their backyard in town somehow. You see it with people who are trying to keep chickens in town, and community gardens, things like that. People are trying to get this. And the problem is you can't just leave town and come out here and get it. You can't drop everything there, and with what it would take to start a farm out in Alberta, it's more than you could ever handle. And so for us to be able to do this and just walk into it and have it, it's a lot of work still, but we're really lucky to get that.
Stick around for dessert, and while you're at it, get an icy treat from the little ice cream shop in Red Deer. Alberta is a special place to have dinner for many reasons. Our weather and geography, as well as our history, diversity, and innovation. There is a uniquely Albertan spirit on display at virtually every farm, home, and restaurant we visited. The real secret ingredient to the Alberta dinner is the people of Alberta. Their passion, knowledge, and friendliness were both inspired and inspiring. We hope they leave you inspired as well, with only one question remaining. What's for dinner tonight?
I was running to catch my breath. I ran so hard, so there'd be nothing left. But then you stopped me with a quick hello. And how that moved me, you'll never know. Now we're at a crossroads of our hearts and our minds. We can't go no further without being left behind. And I want to love you, but I want to make it last. I can't dream of our future without thinking about the past. And I can't tell you where our love may go. And I can't love you right now, I know. Maybe one day we can see it through. And I can love you like I was meant to do.
Alberta boasts a big blue sky, fresh mountain air, and some of the best food producers anywhere, from our world-famous beef to our well-loved pork, from spice Gouda to cream cheese, with canola oil, grains, chicken, eggs, and turkey in between. Albertans are producing an amazing range of really good food. Taste Alberta serves up information to help you serve Alberta food every day. We are a working group of advisors and partners that connect you with the facts about Alberta food and help you explore the amazing range of products available right here at home. Learn more at tastealberta.ca.